Welcome to the channel. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. It's your favorite realtor, Dr. Yeti, and I am back with yet another video, okay? You guys may or may not hear it in my voice. Your girl's voice is sounding very stuffy, and I almost said to myself, I'm going to sleep, but I said no. No. I got to come on here and show y'all, bless y'all with my face. Hello, okay, still sitting pretty. Oh my goodness, my accent came out. Still sitting pretty, even while she has a cold. Hello, but today we're gonna be reacting to Treasury boss confesses your home will pay America's debt. I am very curious to see what this video is about. I haven't watched it yet. Most of my videos, 99% of my videos, I never watch before I react to it live with you guys. Very curious to see what he's talking about. But anyway, let's get to the video. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, release him. Let's get to it, yo.
I think most of us can agree that pretty much nobody is satisfied with where home prices are right now in the United States, unless you are somebody that bought a house a long time ago and is sitting on a ton of equity and still has pretty low property taxes, and you're thinking about selling right now and 10xing your money. Unless that's you, you probably aren't happy with the current state of affairs. And what I'm about to tell you is gonna just kind of make that worse, unfortunately, guys, because the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent a few months ago was on TV, and he says that we need to grow the GDP faster than the debt in this country, which essentially means that we need to inflate asset prices even further in order to expand the tax base. And the problem with doing that is it doesn't fix the underlying issues that we have in this country. You know, their solutions to continuing to keep this economy going always involve printing more money and adding more debt to our national debt rather than try to go in the opposite direction for a change, even though the current trajectory is completely unsustainable. And the problem with this concept is when they grow the economy, it makes it so that your house and other assets go up on paper anyways in value.
Well, you can't
so
sell
that
it.
way they can tax you more. Ask anybody who bought a house in the last 5 years how much they have seen their property taxes go up. And I guarantee you, everybody's going to raise their hand and say it went up quite a bit more than I thought it would. Because higher asset prices equals higher property taxes, higher capital gains taxes, and higher cost of living, even if your purchasing power doesn't improve.
The government always finds a way to control people. Or there's always a fight for control, because remember I made a video about property taxes and how it may not even be beneficial. Well, may not be, but I don't even know why I just said that. This cold's probably getting to my head, but how property taxes kind of ensure that you don't completely own your home. And for the government to be able to have that power to squeeze more money out of you by increasing your property value on paper is insane. It's extremely insane.
Not for most of us. And this is how your house can end up paying off America's debt, or at least their attempt at it, okay? First of all, we have the inflation tax, which means they print money and your house goes from being worth $300,000 to $500,000, which is something we already saw happen, right? Those days are kind of over. They would have to print significantly more money to see another wave of this bubble going even higher, because home values are already crashing across the country as today's buyers just cannot afford today's prices. When your home value goes up, you pay higher property taxes and you pay higher capital gains taxes if you sell the house, if you're eligible for capital gains taxes. And then of course, if you can't pay your property taxes, the county will put a lien on your property and you could be facing foreclosure. And that's something we're going to talk about later in this video, because foreclosures have been spiking recently. And then of course, every time somebody sells their property, whether it's against their will or not, you might potentially have those capital gains taxes. There are transfer taxes, recording fees, document stamp fees, all the crap that goes along with closing on a property. And then the new person buys it and it resets at an even higher tax base, assuming the property sold more than it sold for the previous time. And so who wins in this scenario?
The government.
The government wins every single time.
Crazy.
Because they are taxing you every step along the way. And that's one of the strongest theories that a lot of people have out there of why home values can never go down.
You will own nothing and be happy about it. You will own nothing and be satisfied with it. Based on what he's saying, what would make anyone say to themselves that they want to be homeowners? And I'm speaking about this from the perspective of a realtor. With this information that he just shared, what will motivate anyone logically to say to themselves, after having this knowledge, let me buy a house in America? I do still think it is better to buy a house in America than it is to rent. However, if you are just buying a house just to buy it, you're going to end up being a victim to the situation. If you didn't buy it with strategy, if you're not strategic with how you purchased the home. But it's very unfortunate that it's almost like they're pushing people. It's like they don't want people to own a house. I just find that very interesting.
Because the government just won't let it happen, right? Because if home values were to drop enough, then that implodes a large chunk of the economy. However, I'm not really sure if there's much they can do about it at this point. We'll see. But so far, any of the efforts they've been making have not been enough to make a dent. And home prices have been continuing to fall throughout most of the country at this point. And here's a recently...
Home prices have been falling. Interesting. At least in Atlanta, it hasn't really been, it's actually either staying stagnant or slightly increasing, but it's not dropping. So I'm very curious to see when December rolls around. However, I will also say that the winter time is the time when you see a lot less properties on the market and a lot more expensive properties, and a lot less sales. So I'm very curious to see how this season
old property that shows you just how much property taxes can spike. Okay, the previous owner bought this house for $1.1 million in 2018, and then they went ahead and sold it for just barely $2.1 million after asking almost $2.9 million. So they had to lower the price 800 grand to get this property sold. But now the new tax base for this,
that's a lot of money. That's basically a whole house. $800,000, you have to drop the price.
Person who just bought.
Imagine, did y'all watch the video that I made yesterday when I was talking about the homes in Nigeria and how some homes are $600,000 house? Would you buy that $600,000 house in Lekki? If you haven't seen it yet, just go watch my video from yesterday. Would you buy that $600,000 house, $670,000 house on Lekki that the guy was reviewing, or this $2 million house?
This house is $2.1 million, whereas the previous one was $1.1 million.
$2 million. And people are just like, oh, there's no such thing as luxury. If it's just because it's luxury prices doesn't mean it's a luxury property. Yeah, my love, like properties are priced based on demand. If people are willing to pay $600,000 for that property on Lekki, then that is what it's worth. The price of things, the value of things are based on what people are willing to spend on it. And if people are willing to spend $600,000 on it, then it's worth $600,000. But a lot of people don't really think about the supply and demand.
I think the jump in property taxes is going to be for this person.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is base for...
The previous owner was already paying over $17,000 a year in property taxes. The new owner is going to be paying well over 35 grand, probably closer to 40. So who wins in that scenario, guys?
Goodness.
The county of Miami.
$30,000 a year on taxes? And mind you, the taxes on that house was only based on $700,000. If this house is being sold for $2 million, that's more than half of $700,000. That's almost 3x. So that property tax is not going to be $30,000. it's probably going to be closer to $45,000 a year. I mean, different markets.
Hey, that's who. But here's how all these home sales end up making it so that you end up paying off the national debt with your home, okay? You have the government.
Another thing is, like, I thought property taxes are only used to pay the local government. Let me see. Let me Google that. Let's Google it together. Do property taxes... I don't know if I'm searching it. Go to the federal government. I'm typing with one finger, by the way. I have my headphones on. Maybe I should use both fingers, but let's see. No, property taxes do not go to the federal government. Property taxes are a primary source of revenue for the local government. So I don't know how, I had to use my logic. I was hoping that he would express, maybe he will, but your property taxes are only based for your local government. It doesn't even go federally. So how are your property taxes going to be used to pay America's debt? Unless we're talking about interest rates, but the bank makes the money on the interest rates, not the government. So I don't really know how property taxes are going to be used to pay America's debt. Let's keep watching though. Maybe he'll explain it.
Government-backed mortgages, so they print money, which means the banks can lend more against your property because you're also buying it for a higher price. More debt secured by homes equals more interest flowing through the financial system that ends up funding government borrowing even further.
Okay, that makes
and then
sense.
your property becomes collateral for the national debt machine. And we can actually look at some historical examples of this. In the 1970s, home values doubled, but property taxes tripled as mortgage rates hit close to 18%. Many families lost their homes back then, not because prices crashed, but because the carrying costs, the taxes, plus the interest on the home became impossible to keep up with. And so the governments collected huge tax windfalls.
Wait, what year was he? Is he talking about the 2008 crash? Let me watch it again. I'm so sorry. I wanted to hear.
Many families
Is he talking about
collateral for the national debt machine. And we can actually look at some historical examples of this. In the 1970s, home values doubled, but property taxes tripled as mortgage rates hit close to 18%. Many families lost their homes back then, not because prices crashed, but because the carrying costs, the taxes, plus the interest on the home became impossible to keep up with. And so the governments collected huge tax windfalls while the households got crushed. So the playbook here is you inflate the asset prices, you tax the gains on those assets, you force the sales by having property taxes and carrying costs too high, and then you rinse and repeat. And we can literally see this happening right now before our eyes. So what can you do about this as a homeowner or a would-be homeowner in the future? Well, the first thing that you can do, which I always tell people to do, is to challenge your property tax assessment. It's not a guarantee you're going to win, but it's worth a try. And I always have a link for this down in the description below. I personally use Ownwell to do it for myself. They do it on your behalf, and I highly recommend checking them out.
I don't know about no Ownwell, but I'll tell you this right now. It's very simple and it's free. You go on Google, you type in your county's tax assessor's office, and on that website it will show you how to appeal. So appeal your property taxes. You click the link and you just simply appeal it. Now when you get your property taxes, it will tell you you have a deadline to appeal it. You can't appeal it after your mortgage company has paid for it. Like, there's a deadline that you have to appeal it. So if you don't appeal it before that deadline, then you're not gonna be able to appeal it again until the following year. So I don't know who Unwell is, but you can definitely do it for free, y'all. And by the way, I'm getting this headache. Yeah, the change of seasons ain't for the weak.
But the problem is most homeowners never challenge their property tax bill, and those who do try to do it themselves And
Okay.
they end up losing a lot of times
That's not
because they
all the
don't have
time. A
the
lot of
proper
people.
evidence. And like here in Miami-Dade, for example,
Oh,
the
okay.
wind
What is the evidence you need? I'm gonna tell you simply like this: find you a realtor friend or an appraiser friend, and run comps on the property. Run comps on the property. See what the property is actually worth. If they're telling you that the property is worth $500,000, but the homes in the neighborhood, the comps in the neighborhood say that this property is only worth $300,000, then you run those comps and you send it to them and you say, based on the comps, this property is only worth $300,000. And then if you go to court about it, whatever the case is, you can appeal it by sharing the documents, the proof that you found that the comps are saying that the property is worth less than what it is. But that doesn't mean you can't do it by yourself. You don't need to hire anyone to do that either.
window when you can actually challenge your property taxes is so small. I mean, it's ridiculous. You get a notice in the mail in September by like the first or second week of September, and then you only have till the end of the month to protest. So there's like a 2 or 3 week window at best to protest. So they really don't want you to do it. They don't give you a
I
whole
don't know, maybe I don't know where he is, but where I am, they give you about a month or two. They give you a good period of time, like a good amount of time to protest it, to contest your taxes. They just know that a lot of people are not going to do it, but
lot of time
they don't
to
give you 3
gather the
weeks at
evidence.
least,
You got to basically be ready for a protest before you're even allowed to do it. That way you can do it on time. And then of course, if you are an owner occupant in your property, you should always have a homestead exemption. Max
tell my
out any
clients all the
homestead
time.
exemptions you might be eligible for. Like here in Florida, you have it just for living in the house,
Oh, so
but
he's in
also you
Florida.
might have it if you are a veteran. You can have it if you're over the age of 65, you're a senior citizen. There's different homestead exemptions you might qualify for. But we can also see how this system is in full effect right now by looking at how much the foreclosure filings have been jumping recently. Everything I just outlined in this playbook of increasing property values to the point where people can't afford the carrying costs and then they lose the house, it's happening right now. Foreclosure filings jumped 20% year over year as of the October data, and roughly 37,000 US properties had a foreclosure filing in October.
wow.
And this includes default notices, scheduled auctions, and bank repossessions. And even though these levels remain below historic peaks, we have seen 8 straight months in a row of increases in foreclosure filings, which point to more homeowners struggling to keep up with the mortgage payments. These are forced sales. These are people who are losing their homes, not because they don't want to live there, but because they cannot afford it anymore. And of course, right here in Florida, where I'm walking right now, is ground zero for this foreclosure crisis, where 1 in every 1,829 homes has a foreclosure filing, the highest in the nation. And cities like Tampa, Jacksonville,
0.1%.
and Orlando rank among the highest metros for foreclosures. And the rising insurance premiums, the rising property taxes, and the falling home values are all major contributors. And of course, the horrible job market where people cannot keep up with the cost of living. And if you lose a job, it's kind of the kiss of death right now.
Excuse me, sir. How old were you when you made your first million?
I
What is
will
this
say
for?
this.
We're
if
trying
you're
to
a
get advice
homeowner-
for the younger generation.
I made my first
If you're a homeowner, you should reach out to your bank if you're not able to pay for your mortgage and see if they're willing to allow you to go on forbearance, right? Forbearance is probably your best bet. If you're not able to pay for your mortgage, call your lender to let them know that and depending on your lender, they could give you a few months of forbearance. It could be even up to a year of forbearance. So just FYI.
Nationwide, homeowners insurance premiums are up nearly 50% in the last 5 years. And when you have higher property taxes and a higher cost of living, combined with the labor market weakness we're seeing right now, it's a recipe for disaster, guys. We are living through the perfect economic storm right now. And unfortunately, it feels like it's just getting started. And a lot of people who are losing houses right now, let's face it, they bought at the worst possible time. You know, I was advising against so many people to buy over the past few years, unless you knew for a fact you're going to be hanging on to the property for a long time, unless you knew for a fact that you would be able to make those payments with ease, especially if you're buying on dual income and only have one because one person lost a job. Like, if you didn't follow that protocol, you're probably in this category right now of a struggling borrower. You know, so many people bought their homes at the peak of the housing market in 2022 when home values were at their highest and FOMO was at its highest. Everybody thought, oh, inflation is too high. They printed too much money. There's no way this is ever going to reverse. Home prices are going to go up forever. And if you don't buy now, you're going to be priced out of the market forever. And completely the opposite has been true. Home values are now falling in more than half of the metros across the country. And even in areas where it's still climbing, it's not climbing by too much anymore. And the days of FOMO are over. A lot of these people bought into the lie that they would buy now and refinance later, but the rates haven't really fallen enough to make that a possibility. And even if they have, for some people, a lot of people are now underwater on their mortgage and can't refinance anyways, which is something else we'll cover in a little bit here. You know, when the 30-year mortgage went down from like 6.8% to 6.2% on a $400,000 loan, it only saves you like $100 a month, guys. That's not enough to make refinancing worth it. And no surprise, the FHA borrowers are the ones that are seeing the largest spike in foreclosures right now. In fact, FHA loans made up 44% of all foreclosure starts as of the third quarter of this year. And that's because they put down only 3.5% down. Some of them even qualify for programs where it's 0% down because their income is significantly below the median income in their area. And everybody thinks that's great. Oh, let's give people a chance to get into a home. Well, look at that. Look how many of them are losing it now. And a lot of buyers are just biting off more than they can chew. That's the reality. You know, you have households that earn like $100K a year, and they are stretching to buy $600,000-$700,000 homes, you know, which leaves no room for any financial emergencies, no room for vacation, no room for lifestyle changes or hidden expenses, nothing like that. And then one little thing happens and boom, you can't make the house payment. And so far,
and that's why I tell y'all all the time, you got to budget. You have to budget. Like, don't live within your means. You got to live below it. Don't spend every dollar you get. You got to start saving. You want to live 50% of your needs must be or 50%, I'm sorry, 50% of your income should be your needs. And your needs aren't just your rent or your mortgage. That also includes your car note, groceries, right? If you have a budget set aside for groceries, unless you don't want to eat, right? Your electric bill, your utilities, those are your needs. 50% of your income should go to your needs. And everything else, savings, paying down debt, investments. But you don't want to, or also, and then some of it towards your wants, vacation fund, all that stuff. Because you still want to have fun as well, right? We're not here on this earth just to buy and save. I mean, to work and save and pay bills. That's not what we're here for. You still have to do things to have fun, but you don't want to live your life literally paycheck to paycheck. And if that job goes away, you are SOL. So.
Stressed sales have been picked up by home flippers and real estate investors. A lot of times these homeowners are approached once there's a list pending on their property before it even comes to market to try and buy it out from under them before it ever hits the market. And a lot of savvy investors do this because they know that's how you can get the best deal on a property, especially when somebody is desperate for money. And of course, all of the recent job losses that we're seeing are going to exacerbate this issue because if you lose your job, you're really in a position where you can't make payments unless you have been very smart with your money, save the emergency fund like I talk about here on this channel, and don't have a whole lot of other monthly payment or debt obligations, so that way you can stretch that money as far as possible. And for anybody curious, I am walking down 104th Avenue here in Miami Shores today. And listen guys, homeowners are getting hit from all different angles. In fact, the most recent data from Zillow shows us that the hidden costs of owning a home, which include your taxes, your insurance, and your ongoing maintenance, now total a whopping $16,000 a year beyond your mortgage payment. Zillow is reporting that those figures have risen faster than incomes, which are hitting first-time home buyers the hardest. And that's why
first-time home buyers are the ones that get it the worst, because it blindsides them. And that's why I focus solely on educating first-time home buyers. First-time home buyers are the ones that get so blindsided. They buy like, you don't really know what you don't know until the time comes. You just don't know. First-time home buyers are the ones that really get the brunt of it all, because they didn't prepare for it. They just bought the house. Oh, we can afford the monthly payments. They told you guys at the closing table, they gave you an amortization table, and you're thinking this is how much you're going to be paying every single month for the entire 30 years. Awesome. I can afford $1,900 a month, until boom, it goes from $1,900 to $3,000 a month after 3 years, because property taxes are going up and insurance are going up, and you didn't file for homestead exemption. So it's like so many things can be done, can be avoided, can be done in the present. But a lot of people just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
You're seeing so many people stay away from housing. Like, first of all, they just can't afford it at today's prices and rates. Most people don't qualify. And then if you do qualify, once you look at all of the expenses with owning a home, and you look at what you're paying right now in rent, or your current home that you bought 10 years ago, it's kind of a no-brainer to continue renting or staying in your old house. According to Zillow, they're saying that homeowners insurance costs alone are now increasing twice as fast as homeowner incomes across the country.
Crazy.
Like, how is that sustainable, guys? You can't have all these expenses, not just one of them, by the way.
I'm going to end this here. My headache is starting to, it's starting to do its thing. So let me know what you guys think. If you really do think that the government is the reason why, well, I don't say it's the reason why the home prices are going up. The home prices are going up. Really, a lot of it has to do with the government. But do you think that they're doing it to squeeze more money out of people? Like, do you think that they're increasing home prices so that they can find ways to make more money out of residents, homeowners? Let me know in the comments. I will say this before I go. I have a property that the value of that property is not worth what it is, what the tax assessors claim that it is, like at least $100,000 less. Rent comps on the property, and actually let it be known that you guys are inflating the prices of this home. And of course, the home is located in an area that is within 2 years going to be a very, very sought after area. So I immediately already knew that they were trying to push people out, but I filed for an appeal, and guess what? The appeal was completely ignored. And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and hopefully I would hear back. And eventually my mortgage had to pay that tax, which makes it too late. So I say all of this to say, I probably should have been on top of it. Definitely should have. I did not know that they were going to completely ignore my appeal. So I know for next year. However, just know that my monthly mortgage payments has increased significantly as a result. So I say all of this to say, okay, you go from paying $2,100 a month on monthly mortgage payments to paying almost $3,000 a month on monthly mortgage payments. These are the things that happen. And if you're a first-time homeowner and you don't know these things are possible, you end up being blindsided. Thankfully, I'm not a first-time home buyer, and so I already know this is an investment property. However, it's frustrating. And imagine if you don't know any of this. I can't file for homestead exemption on that property because I don't live in there. right? So there's just a few things and few nuances. But you know, I just do pray that you guys are on this, you know, clear and narrow path and understanding, like, before you buy a house, just make sure you do your research, y'all. Make sure you do thorough research, because it is not as sweet as you may think it is. But anyway, y'all, let me know what you think in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, y'all. You know, I always read the comments and I will respond, okay? But hopefully this headache goes away and this muffled voice, this cold goes away, okay? But yeah, y'all, make sure you like this video, make sure you share it, and make sure you subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.